Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Craig Curlop, aka the Fi Guy. I'm literally feeling like I'm enjoying my own podcast right now. Coming here with Ian on the Invest in Denver podcast. If you don't know me already, I'm the founder of the Fi team, author of the House Hacking Strategy, and our mission is just to help people achieve financial independence through house hacking. And so I'm excited here to chat with you here today, Ian.
Yeah, appreciate your time, Craig. I know you're a busy dude and you got some great laurels that we can definitely expand upon and detail out in this podcast. So, yeah, man, with that being said, you were supposed to come out here. I know you're living in Idaho right now, yeah, but you're supposed to come out here not so long ago.
Yeah, well, I was supposed to come out here literally today as we speak. I was gonna maybe like surprise you and just hop in your studio and we could record this thing live, but Mother Nature had different plans for us. So, we had there's a snowstorm hitting Denver. My flight got canceled this morning. I still woke up at 3:30 as if I was going to catch the flight. But instead of my morning routine, I did a drive to the airport and back. So,
Mm. Such is life,
yeah.
unfortunately. Well, again, appreciate you being on the Invest in Denver podcast. We are always working together, even outside of the podcast realm. But for some reason, if there's people living under a rock and don't know of you or have heard of you, Craig, what's a quick series of events that even led you to Denver? And then we'll start from there.
Yeah, so I graduated from college in 2015 and moved out to California because that was the dream for anybody from the East Coast, was to move to California where it's sunny all year and, the girls are pretty and the weather is nice and all these things. And I basically, I was there for 2 years and I ended up in a job that I hated. And I realized that the job, like what I did for a living, was much I guess it was much more important than like all of the other things that California had to offer. And so basically I figured I cannot stay in this job, and I looked kind of at my future and I said, okay, if I do stay in this job, where am I going to end up? I'm going to end up 20 feet down the hallway, working more hours, making a little bit more money, but that's basically the extent of it. And so and I was like, what do I want to do with my life? I like to travel. I want to have a family. I want to do things that actually fill me and support me. And unfortunately, working in a cubicle was not that. And so I discovered real estate investing while in California. I didn't do it in California, but I was just kind of learning about it. And quickly I realized I needed to get out of this corporate space and into real estate as soon as I could. So one weekend after a long trip to South America, I applied to 250 jobs. 249 of those was in Florida, and one was in Denver. And that one was a job at a little company called Bigger Pockets, what I was obsessed with at the time. And so when I got the offer, I was like, okay, I guess Denver it is. And so that's how Denver happened.
Nice. So it sounds like you already knew about Bigger Pockets prior to applying there. So
hmm
how are you affiliated with it, or were you just a active engager in the forums possibly?
I was just a super fan. Yeah, I was in the forums. I listened to the podcast, read all their books. Like I was doing everything except working for them. And so I guess I just had to check off that final box.
Yeah. And then I know you were a blog writer, like very consistent, very in-depth and things like that. Where did that start and how did you even, I guess, fulfill that position?
Yeah, so when I was working at Bigger Pockets, Scott Trench was coming out with his book Set for Life. And I told him I want to write a book someday. And I'd love for Bigger Pockets to publish it. And he said, oh, that's great. Well, let me tell you what I did, and maybe you'll have the same opportunity. I started writing for the blog about 2 or 3 years ago and I can't promise you're going to ever get a book deal. But how it starts is you start writing for the blog and you do it consistently for a long time. And if people like you and like your writing, then maybe we'll give you an opportunity someday to write a book. And so that's what I did. Like literally like the first day I start, like within the first week of starting, I had written my first blog post and I tried to pump out like probably about 2 blog posts a month. This was before Chat GPT or anything like that, where you could bust them out in like 30 seconds. And, and so that's what I did. I did that for 2 years. I came out with like 60 something blog posts. And finally they were like, oh, well, we need to write a book on house hacking. Brandon was going to do it, but he's too busy opening his, Open Door Capital. Scott was going to do it, but he was too busy being CEO of Bigger Pockets at the time because he just got promoted. And so I was third in line. And I was like, hell yeah, I'll take it. So that's kind of the genesis of how the house hacking book happened.
Love it. So I assume that your blog posts were either financial independence or financial independence related or house hacking related. Was there anything that sort of touched on the outskirts of real estate, or was it all just house hacking related?
It was house hacking and financial independence. So some of it was like, how to save money on your car, or how to spend less on groceries, or, how to get your savings rate down. But a lot of it was real. I mean, it was a mixture of financial independence and real estate, kind of exactly what we talk about today.
Yeah. And how long did it take from you first starting that blog writing all the way until you being third in line to writing the house hacking book? How long did that take?
Let's see. So I started at Bigger Pockets in April 2017. So that's when I started, and then started writing the house hacking book probably at the end of 2018, early 2019. So about 2 years
Yeah.
until it became official. Yeah.
And that's a long period of time for a lot of people, especially with being consistent of writing blogs, being active in the community, and just slaying it on your W-2 as well. I mean, what kept you driving forward? And was there like a journey versus the destination mentality about it, or was there something else about it?
There was nothing. I had no intention of even like. I remember him saying that, and then like while writing it wasn't like I'm doing this for a book. I'm doing this for a book, and that was the end all be all. I was doing it because I really enjoyed writing. I started doing the Miracle Morning, and writing is a big part of that. And so it kind of felt like a completion to my morning, as if I just wrote, for 20, 30 minutes a day. And
Yeah.
then I figured I might as well write about something productive. And then when I launched the posts, people were commenting and feedback, and it was some good, and there were some haters. And I was like, oh, like this stuff is kind of starting to take off. This is kind of fun. And so then I became a little bit more of this credible source of knowledge about house hacking and saving. And here we go. Like 2 years later, had the opportunity to write the book, and I did all this on my own time. By the way, I did not do this during Bigger Pockets hours.
Hmm.
And so, the only thing that I got was I was kind of in because I had that connection, right? Like I just went to the blog person and was like, hey, can I write for the blog? And she's like, yeah. So I think the criteria is a little bit more strict these days.
Yeah, especially with how many people are authors on there now. I mean, there's a plethora of information from like self-storage to multifamily, Airbnb, arbitrage, what have you. And you found that
Hmm.
niche so quickly, especially with house hacking. And were you house hacking even in the Bay Area, right? You were over in San Francisco at the time.
Yep.
Or did you just hear about that and maybe just living with roommates and you just understanding it that way?
No, so yeah, I definitely was not house hacking in the Bay Area. Uh, the last place that I lived in the Bay Area was in San Francisco, in a really small bedroom in a pretty nice condo in a good part of town, and it was only $1,000 a month, so it was a steal. And the woman that was living there was a single African American mom of two, and she lived in the living room behind a curtain with two kids by herself. And I slept in the one room, and then there was a couple renting out the master bedroom. And so that was the idea for what many people know of me for renting out the curtain. It really wasn't even me. Like all my ideas I stole from somebody else.
That's great. I mean, what do they say? Good artists create, great artists steal. And I feel like you stole that idea from her.
I stole most of my ideas. Yes.
And just rebrand it for yourself. It's great.
Exactly. Maybe I throw my own little twist on it, but like certainly there's always, I think any idea, very rarely I think does an idea just come up from nothing, right? Like you had to have read a couple books, listened to a couple podcasts, mesh them together, and you're like, oh yeah, I stole this from this guy and this from this guy, and meshed it together and created my own, right?
Yeah.
So,
I felt, yeah, that's often becoming a topic that's really interesting these days. And I'm seeing it on Instagram, social media, and things like that, where the skills themselves, like individually, are a dime a dozen, where you can just learn this on Google or learn this wherever that might be in a library or from another person or a mentor. But where it really shines and the spotlights really happen, where you become unique in your skill sets, is when you combine all these different things. When you
mhm.
start to realize that, okay, financial independence, real estate investing, how can I merge these two? And I feel like you found that through house hacking. So, like going through that house hacking journey, it sounds like you started in Denver in that case, yeah?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I just want to touch on what you just said too, because that's exactly what I did, right? There's kind of two like tribes that I found myself a part of when I was starting. There was the financial independence tribe. who are just extreme savers. And their whole thing is like save, 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 put a bunch of money in an index fund. Eventually you'll have in 10 or 15 years, you'll have $1 million saved up, and that's $40,000 a year and on a 4% interest rate. And you're good to go, right? Like that's all you need to live off of. And so like I liked half of that strategy, like save, save, save. I like that part, right? But like $40,000 a year is not, I wanted to live on more than that. And so then you've got the real estate side who's like, okay, like build, 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 build. And now we're talking about, 50, you can now live on 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 a year. And I don't know when I'm going to stop or what, but, it's just a little bit more like you can live a normal lifestyle that way.
For sure. So yeah, you have that financial independence aspect of it. You're now looking at real estate as a new vehicle rather than just index funds, stocks, and things like that. 401ks, like I myself, I'm planning on liquidating it as soon as possible because I don't plan on retiring at 60. I plan on retiring at 40, if even that, right? Yeah. So it just makes no sense to me to have something stay in there for so long where it's just not being touched. And I see no utilization of that capital when I could just have it compound so much quicker through real estate, right? Is that something you thought of too? Maybe you've worked on that in California with your first W2 job, and then also maybe with Bigger Pockets as well, yeah?
Yeah, so I had my job in California matched my 401k up to the max. So like I could at the time the max was $18,000, and so I was putting $36,000 a year into my 401k, right? Which is kind of nuts. But I was like, well, I have to do it. It's free money. And so I was doing that for a while. I ended up over the course of a couple of years, ended up with like 100 and something thousand in my 401k. And I was like 23 years old. And like most of my net worth was in my 401k, right? Which is pretty bizarre for someone who's 23, 24. Yeah. But that's not real. Like I haven't liquidated my 401k yet. I kind of just use it as almost like play money in a way. Like, I invest in a syndication to see how it might go, or like I kind of use it as a learning curve, knowing that I'll probably see the money again, but I'm not too sure, right? But I've thought very greatly about liquidating it, and I wouldn't recommend anybody put money into their 401k unless they're getting that match.
Yeah, that it's free money at that point. You're putting in one and you're getting two out of it. It's like a high leverage opportunity for your capital at that point. So I guess going into your first house hack, I mean, this is where it really shines, and I saw like great benefits from it, but I want to hear from you, Craig, of like how you even found the property, and the prices are going to be incredibly different than what they are now, but let's hear it, man.
Yeah, so I found the property. It was on the MLS. I liked it because it was close to the office. It was a new build, and so I didn't have to do any work to it. I could just get in and get it rented right away. It was a duplex. It was kind of unique because it's duplexed attached to a row home. So there's three basically row homes, right? Mine is on the end and it's a duplex. And so there's 4 total units in the row home. I've got 2 of them up and down. They're both 1 bed, 1 bath. And I bought that for $385,000 in 2017. My mortgage payment on that was about $2,000 a month. I was renting the top out for $1,750, and I was like pretty mad because I really wanted to live for free. And so what I did was I went into my memory box of not too long ago, and I Airbnb'd out my bedroom and slept on a futon behind a curtain in my living room. And that bedroom netted me about $1,100 a month on average on Airbnb. And so now I was making $2,850 a month on a $2,000 mortgage. So I was living for free after reserves and all that kind of stuff, right? I was probably making about $600 a month. And so, and then when I moved out of that property started cash flowing me $1,000 a month. And that sounds cushy, right? Like that's fun for a lot of people. I'm sure a lot of people would take $1,000 a month. But what was really cool about that was, one, I only put $17,000 down, right? And so if you think about that cash on cash return, you're looking at $12,000 over $17,000 down. It's like 80% or something crazy. Yeah. And then on top of that, that property has appreciated on average $83,000 a year. I just got it appraised again this year, 5 years later in 2022, and it appraised at $800,000.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, it's nuts. And of course we got a little bit lucky, right? But in 2017, everyone was saying it was the top, right? So I was scared, just as scared as anyone is today. I was very scared back then. And I mean, prices just soared, right? And so that turns out to be a 605% total return on my investment. So in exchange for $17,000, I got like $500,000 of wealth or something like, I don't know, something crazy like that. So yeah, I mean, it's nuts. And that's why real estate is so much fun.
And that's within the course of 6 years. I mean, that's not even a lifetime. And imagine how much money you would have to dedicate towards index funds, stocks, going the traditional financial independence route. Sure, it's so passive, but if you put a little bit more management practices behind it and start to really utilize your money, you can supercharge it. It's almost like you're injecting it with that vehicle of real estate that's going much faster than your traditional stocks, right? Was there anything?
That's right.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. And going into like the bigger pocket space and then going house hacking, was there anything in particular that directly influenced you? I mean, let's say the bigger pockets community in general, but was there maybe anyone in the offices that you can attribute a lot of the go do it, you could do this?
Um, so Scott Trench was a big mentor of mine. And I guess he's more of a friend now. Like we've kind of gone different ways in terms of career, but I just caught up with him a couple weeks ago and had a great time. But in the beginning, he was the one that was like telling me what to do. He was like, "Hey, I'll buy you a beer if you can get this place rented out at 1750." And I showed him the lease and wrote "How you like them apples" right on it. And unfortunately, I didn't drink at the time, so I didn't take him up on the beer. But just to prove the point was good enough for me. And yeah, so Scott was a big one. Of course, Josh was there at the time, Josh Dorkin. He didn't really invest in real estate, but he was just a fun guy to talk to and someone to look up to, just kind of on a greater life stuff. Dave Meyer, who's still there, was investing quite a bit. And so, yeah, like I was definitely like friendly with a lot of the people in the Bigger Pockets, and employees of Bigger Pockets that were investing.
And so, how much do you attribute that community aspect of it to you getting that first house? Because what I'm thinking is, who you surround yourself is super important. No matter what field you are in, what goals you have. I mean, let's say for me, I'm joining a running club. I'm part of the Denver Running Club. As of next week, we got our first sort of like run together. But those people will drive me to fulfill my other goals, like my personal goals of running a 50K in April, right? Having other people in Bigger Pockets drive you to that goal of house hacking, 600% return on investment, on all that good stuff. Do you think you would have reached that without the community? Maybe this is a softball question, but maybe let's be honest here, right?
So that's a good question. I was pretty determined to invest in real estate. Now, it probably would have, if it wasn't Bigger Pockets, it would have been a different community, right? I would have been in Florida with some real estate agents, or I would have been doing something real estate related, and that would have got me to be buying. But absolutely, if you want to buy real estate, go make some friends that also buy real estate, right? Like I moved to Denver with the very much intention that the only friends I would have were ones that purchased real estate. And I don't think I have a friend in Denver that's not interested in real estate in one way or the other. I had one actually, and we're not friends anymore. So, and it's not because of the real estate, but but that's kind of it though, right? It's like, that's kind of the common denominator, and it makes it a lot easier when you see people around you doing it and thinking about it.
hmm Going back to the financial independence aspect of it, because that's the main goal here. Like, we want to reach that financial independence sort of criteria, threshold, especially in our income and getting it passively through month, or whatever passive means to anyone. But what were some of the top factors that really propelled you into getting to that fine number as soon as possible? And maybe you can also tell the people how long it took you to even get to financial independence from the time you committed to it and getting to that fine number.
Yeah, so from my first house hack to FI, it was about 2.5 years. Actually, a little less than that. But yeah, and so that's supercharged, right? And so I was very efficient. House hacking is by far the number one thing. And I think, you're reducing your largest expense. You're also cash flowing. You're buying something that's going to appreciate. House hacking by far is number one. Number two, your second largest expense is going to be transportation. And so what I would do is my first 3 places that I purchased were either walking distance to work or on a bike or near a bike path close, like within my longest bike ride was about 45 minutes to work. So I would bike ride for 45 minutes to work every day, and that felt great. And I didn't even consider that a workout. It was just some extra fluff that I had an hour and a half of biking every day, and so I was pretty fit on top of my traditional workouts. And it just felt really, really good to be doing that. And so I was saving 50% of my income right there, right? Because I didn't have any transportation costs and I didn't have any housing costs. And then the third largest expense is going to be food. And so how do I cut down on food? Well, at that time, I was really I was trying not to go out to eat very much, right? Trying to cook my own meals. And I went actually vegan for a little while, which I kind of regret at this point because I don't know how I did it. But yeah, for maybe about like 6 to 12 months. And I didn't drink for a while and all that kind of stuff. So all the things to just get me there quicker, like it just stopped appealing to me. And now I still don't love to drink, right? Like that habit has kind of stuck. I will occasionally, but I don't love it. And and so I don't eat vegan anymore. I eat a lot of meat nowadays. But that's the luxury of being financially independent. Yeah.
For sure. And having that as your trajectory and your threshold of reaching that FI number, a lot of people have this like conflicting ideals of whether to reach financial independence as soon as possible or just enjoying life along the way. And it seems like you had like that happy medium, but do you feel like you had one of these mindsets, whether you wanted to just get there as soon as possible so you just quit your W-2, live the life you actually want, or do you feel like you live the life you want at the same time, but then maybe it sort of changed in your trajectory in getting there?
I went all out those first couple of years. Is that I was enjoying it because I knew that was fun for me and that was my life and I liked it. But I wouldn't say that certainly wasn't that wasn't what I wanted my permanent life to be like, right? So I can't say I was like enjoying life kind of trotting along. Like now, in a place where like, okay, a few years later, we've got a handful of rental properties, not to say that like I've elevated my lifestyle a lot since then, but ever since hitting financial independence, that's given me the opportunity to graduate from my W-2 job, right? Start the FI team. And now it's just become like really fun. And now I'm not playing not to lose, right? I'm playing to win. And so I can take a lot more risks and have the opportunity to make a lot more than I could ever make at a W-2 job, right? And like my first year off of W-2, I made more than I've ever made in my life, like by about 10 times. And since then, I built the FI team, right? And I make a lot less than that now, right? But I'm building something, right? I'm impacting a lot of different people. Like I love you guys. I love all the agents. Like I love watching you guys grow. I love that we can, instead of me stressing out and going crazy and maybe helping like 90 to 100 people per year, that we collectively as a team can probably help 200, 300, 400 people per year and growing, right? And so we're able to have a larger impact that way. And I think everybody is a little bit less stressed. So.
Yeah, I would argue that you're helping out the same amount of people, especially with you being on podcasts, being on different types of media and having a YouTube channel. You're still providing all that value. It's just now it's in the form of a lot of your time and effort is spent bringing other people up and up to speed with how to educate other people within the Denver community or elsewhere, just to get them a taste of that financial freedom eventually, right? It's just the first step.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right.
So with, going back to that hustle versus enjoying life aspect of it, some would argue that I can't live the life I want if I'm dependent on a certain job. And so in that case, I'm going to reach FI as fast as possible, right? But maybe having that mentality in some people's opinions could prevent you from being present and in the moment. And I'm struggling with that aspect personally, but I'm trying to see where you stand. So do you see FI as sort of a checkpoint in someone's life, or do you think it as a destination and then their life can be truly lived after they reach that financial independence?
I love this debate, right? Because there is that balance. It depends on who you are, right? I don't have an addictive personality. I'm not the person that like does something and just gets, but I was obsessed with achieving financial independence, and achieving that base level of financial independence is just something that everybody should do, I think, as fast as you can. And what does that look like? I think that's $3,000 to $5,000, probably these days, $5,000 a month of passive income. is base level financial independence. Then you're able to quit your job, right? You can probably do some cheap traveling, right? To like South America, Thailand, like places that are cheap, right? You can kind of get a taste for financial independence, but you're still probably not going to want to support a wife and kids and all that. If you've got $5,000 of passive income by the time you're in your early 30s, like you've got something that other people don't have in terms of like motivation. And so you probably don't want to just settle for that for the rest of your life. And so you're going to want to keep growing. And so go taste it, right? Like I went to Mexico, I went to Thailand, I did my traveling, I did my stuff. And then I got a taste of like what it's like to actually put all my efforts into something that truly mattered to me, and that the harder that I worked and the smarter that I worked, the more money that I made directly versus like maybe a $20,000 bonus at the end of the year. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars because of it was directly impacting me. And so 2020, that's kind of what happened, right? COVID shut the world down, so I wasn't allowed to travel. And then I just went all out on the real estate agent stuff, helping people out. And that's when I did those 100 deals or so my first year.
Yeah, massive. Your first year as a real estate
Yeah.
agent.
Yeah.
Man.
Yep.
So going from what year was that?
It was, so I quit, graduated from Bigger Pockets. I like to say graduated because I still have a good relationship with them. January 31st of 2020.
Okay. Yeah, so heat of COVID is when you graduated.
Yeah, just before. Like it was kind of happening in China, but no one really knew about it yet here in the US. And then it hit like a month later in the US.
Yeah, I have to say, like when I was in San Diego, it hit California pretty hard and really fast. So I want to say like that whole 2 week flatten the curve thing, 2 weeks turned
Yeah.
into 2 years, but that's happened like maybe April, like early April, and I went from like a full-time job to part-time, and not by my own volition, but based on the company's, their assets, their worries, their pressure, and things like that. So that being said, a lot of people say that there's a lot of risk in investing in real estate. And again, this is almost like a softball question, but I want to hear it from you, where investing in real estate is risky to some degree. Of course, if you don't educate yourself, there's always that Uncle Tom that loses his shirt and things like that. But here I am. I thought I had a solid job as a W-2 worker. I was a geologist, and I'm like, I have no idea what else I could do with this bachelor's degree, you know? So I went from full-time to part-time. My income got slashed in half. And here I thought this was a solid gig. So what do you say to those people that say that real estate investing is risky, and where do you go from there?
I think it's riskier not to invest in real estate for the exact reason that you just said, right? It's more risky not to house hack than it is to house hack. People just can't flip that switch though, because like you said, like most people have one source of income, and if that income gets cut off, they lose it. What do you do with your investments, right? You diversify your investments, right? You put some money in your stocks, some money in real estate. People always talk about diversify, right? That's what why don't you diversify your income? Right? You've got your W-2 income. Like, that's great. Like, work your job, but also pick up some rental properties, right? Maybe you invest in the stock markets that pay some dividends, right? Maybe you write a book. Maybe, right, like add more income streams. So if one gets choked out, you're still okay, because nothing is guaranteed, right? Absolutely nothing is guaranteed. And so you need to diversify in the event that something happens. You'll be
Yeah,
okay.
for sure. So going on to the fight team. I mean, I know we only just talked about one of your house hacks, but maybe before we go into the fight team, I'm curious what your portfolio looks like, at least specifically in Denver, or whatever you're comfortable with shouting out to the world.
Yeah, so I've done a total of 5 house hacks in Denver, but I did sell one of them. So 4 house hacks in Denver. I've got one just traditional rental that I bought with a partner. So 5 for me. My wife, Grace, she has 2. So as a family, we've got 7 properties in Denver. We've got 6 in North Carolina, and 2 plots of land in Florida, which we're going to be selling. And I got 1 property, 2 units in Coeur d'Alene.
Gotcha. And this is to all the people that say you need like hundreds of units or 200 units or something like that in order for you to get financially independent. You have less than 20, sounds like. And that seems much more feasible, especially from like a property management perspective, from a personal perspective, where there's not that many stressors in order for you to get to financial independence. And it's not like you had all 20-ish in order to become financially independent. So I guess
Yeah.
we sort of put financial independence on this pedestal, right? Um, and I mean, now that you've reached it, is it as hard to achieve as a lot of people think?
It's not. It really isn't. Like again, I was crazy and did it in 2.5 years. People have done it quicker than me, right? They've been more efficient with making their money. Like, if I gone back, I probably would do it the same way, but I would probably like take the bigger risk quicker, of going full time into real estate. But I was a little scared too, right? Like I didn't know, like this was kind of like not really done that. I mean, it was, but not to the extent it is now. And so, um, I think you just gotta lean in. And if it takes you 5 years, it takes you 7 years, hell, if it takes you 10 years, if you're listening to this podcast, and unless you're 55 listening to this podcast, then you would be doing better if you retire in 10 years from now than if you didn't, right?
Yeah.
And then if you never invest, and so like just get in, man, because it is such a fun thing to do, and it's so
Mhm.
fun in like getting to year 5 and 6 and seeing how much your properties have appreciated and
Yeah.
and all that, and there's some stress to it, but like it's worth it in the end.
Yeah, I like to tell people, yes, there's definitely some stressors when you own real estate. The thing is that it makes me feel alive. It makes me feel human to have these valleys and peaks of things that are going on in your life. And if I were to have like a 40-hour a week job for 40 years of my life, I feel like it would stay so much more monotonous and not volatile, you know? I like to have that work that's almost depression. And like I said, it just makes me feel like there's something more than just sitting in a cubicle for 40 hours a week, 40 years of my life, so feels good to
Totally.
do it.
The bad times make the good times better, right? It's like it's so true, and you have to just realize that when you're in it, like just zoom out 5, 10 years, you're not even going to remember the stress and the issues that you had. It's going to be a story. It's going to be funny. You're going to laugh at it with your friends, and so yeah, that's all it is.
Yeah. So going into the FI team now, I mean, this is
Yeah.
your new baby, your bread and butter. A lot of your effort and time is being spent into this. And for those of you who don't know, yes, I am an agent on the FI team, and Craig is the head honcho here. So let's start with like the mission statement and the BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal of the FI team. What is it?
Yeah, so the big, hairy, audacious goal of the FI team is to reduce the U.S. retirement age from 65 to 55. And maybe that doesn't sound that aggressive, but obviously most people don't do this, right? And to reduce it 10 years is going to be a massive undertaking. And I think we're going to be able to do it with the help of a lot of other people in the space too. It won't be just us. But we'll be able to do it by getting people to retire. You're not going to have everybody retire at 55.
Mm.
You're going to have a lot of people retiring at 30, 35, 40, right? And so how do you make that age drop? And I think that'll be fun.
Yeah, and this is something that I'm curious with too, because it's not like when you retire, let's say you retire, like I'm retired at 40 or something like that, right? If the US Census Bureau asks me what my occupation is, I'm not going to say retired because I'm going to be doing something with it, right? I'm going to be doing something with my
Hmm.
life at that time. So how does that stay quantitative, and how do you record that? Okay, these guys are retired. Where is that in the stats of the US? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? And maybe we don't have an answer for that yet. But if we just see that the like, if it becomes commonplace to hear somebody to meet somebody at a random spot and they're 55 years old, and if they're still working, and if that could be like, we want that to be weird. Like,
Mm,
oh, you're 56 and you're still working? Like, why? You know? Like I thought the retire like kind of maybe that's kind of the method. Because you're right, right? Like I don't put retired. I never have, and I probably never will. Because like I kind of like to use my brain. I'll be like, even if I'm right, like at some day, like I'll just be like an investor, like a full time investor, right?
yeah.
And I'll probably just always that'll be like my retired role.
Mm,
But either way, I don't think there's like I think some people think that there's like a retirement police out there that runs around, and you say you're financially free or retired at age 30, and you write one blog post at age 31, you're like, they're not retired. See, right? It's like, well, no, I just want to do something with my life. So
For sure. I get you. And going back to the team aspect of it, it's an undertaking from what I'm seeing. And after seeing all the resources that the fight team produces and just the support underneath each agent, how prepared were you to start even this real estate team? Like mentally, was that the biggest hurdle or capital? What was it?
Uh, Dude, I've never been asked that question, and I've never even thought to answer it. It was it was progressive. It was like one step at a time, right? And so it was like, okay, I was getting stressed. I need to hire an agent. Okay, I hired an agent. I teach him how to do things. He wasn't as good as me, so I stopped giving him leads. So then I kept doing it myself, and I went back and forth on that for like 6 months. And I was like, and then I had an epiphany, and I was like, I need to let people fail because then they'll be. That's how they grow. And so I'm going to lose clients in this process, um, and then and so it just started off with like kind of me being the support, right? And then obviously we hired Elise, who's like kind of our chief octopus, who does like pretty much everything, keeps the glue, keeps the ship together, and then that's brought me back a lot of my time, so I can hop on podcasts like this, and I can just whatever, like I can focus more on growth than on just maintaining.
Yeah.
And so now I think we've got a really good infrastructure and a really good foundation to grow a lot more and to scale a lot more. With with Elise kind of being like maybe like the co-captain of the ship, I suppose. We've got Julie, the marketing person who takes care of all the marketing stuff. Rhonda, who's our amazing TC. Like we've got a team together now that I think we could support so many more agents. And now, as you know, right, like we help a lot of investors, and that's the real fun part. But we also want to keep providing you guys with tons and tons of leads, and so that's why we're kind of not shifting, but we're just adding another lead source in terms of that pay-per-click stuff.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like it's been a lot of fun, and that has been the biggest challenge for sure. And I'm excited to start to see it materialize because I think everybody's going to be very happy once it does.
Yeah, it's a waiting game. It really is just a long game. And it's almost like real estate. It's not like you're going to see
Mm-hmm.
results day one. You're going to see it year two, year three, or whatever that might be, if you keep working at it and keep managing the asset appropriately. So I feel you on that. So I guess the reason why I asked that question is also maybe a little selfishly as well, because as I
Yeah.
start to think like, hey, if it does become that situation where I'm getting enough leads, let's say from the fight team and my sphere and my ads or whatever it might be, at what point do you think a solo agent would be ready to hire other agents on the team? And what might that look like for other agents that might be listening to this, where they're like, you know what? I only have two hands here. I only have one brain here. I need someone else to help pick up the slack that I'm not able to pick up.
Yeah, well, the great thing about being a part of a team is that, like Ian, you would be able to leverage everything that we have, and you could kind of like, you can kind of like attract people and recruit people on your own, and there's systems to work that way. Now, if you're just an agent listening to this, not part of the five team, and you don't have the infrastructure, you have to think about, do you want to recreate this? And it is something that is a really fun, challenging thing to do, and it's really just a matter of like, how much time do you want back, right? Like, how much time do you spend working? If you hire an agent, are you willing to make half or less than what you made in order to get some of your time back? And so, like I said, like I made probably like less. It's probably closer to a quarter of what I made in my biggest year is like kind of what I make now. And so it's not like a crazy amount. People think I'm like Mr. Moneybags over here. Like it's really not. Like there's a lot of expenses that we're paying, and we got like employees, but like that's the whole thing is like that's the infrastructure you need in order to grow.
Yeah, and that's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people. I mean,
Yeah.
you're not, it was almost like I compared to when I first quit my W-2 job and lenders were not going to like me. It would have a tougher time finding capital to purchase our next house hack. And Kat was able to hold down that fort with her solid W-2 job, and she was making the investment in me, knowing that I would succeed as a real estate agent and propel us for or with our real estate portfolio, the commissions, everything in between. And it's nice to know that there's like an investment behind it and people believe in you along the way. I mean, even with our own relationship, me and Kat, and then with the fight team as well, it's like, hey, we're investing in you guys and we want to see you guys grow. So it feels really good to be a part of a team that's like, you know what, we're dedicating all these resources and we want you guys to get to this position, right? If that's your dream.
Absolutely. That's the dream. I mean, I've got dreams for our clients, right, to achieve financial independence. My dreams for our agents is I want to see you guys making like multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, right? Like $200,000, $300,000 a year. So you can buy rental properties quicker and you can achieve that quicker and you can help it. And then you start, becoming a very inspirational. And, if I'm like one of the guys that you point to that have maybe changed that trajectory, like makes me tear up. I'm almost tearing up right now. Like I get the goosebumps, like
Yeah.
that's it, man. That's it.
Feels good. Changing lives, man.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so how did you market even getting the FI team agents on board? I know you probably started really small. Even Grace was on there too.
Yeah.
So it sounds like humble beginnings, but now you got almost 20 agents nationwide. It's awesome.
Yeah. So it all started, honestly, most of our agents were clients of ours. Yeah, and
Including
and so
myself.
one of the recommendations, including yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, did I work with you, Ian, or who did you work with?
No, I worked with Nick actually. Nick Munch.
That's right. Okay, so Nick Monge. Yeah, so Nick was the first agent of the FI team.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, he was the first one, and again, it just I couldn't tell that he wasn't. I mean, I love Nick, right? But he wasn't like super passionate about it, and so we ended up going different ways, ended amicably, and yeah, and so it started off kind of just like that. Like it was like Nick heard me on a podcast, and he was moving to Denver and asked if I needed help, and I was like, yeah, I kind of do, right? And then as people saw that, Ben Rodine was one of the first guys. He was a client of mine, and he was like, yeah, I think I could do this. And he became like an awesome agent. Grace was one of my first clients, and she did it too. And so most of it was just clients liking the mission, liking what we're doing, and wanting to be part of it. And now like these clients, now agents are like some of my bestest friends. So it's fun to be part of it.
Yeah, it feels so organic at that point too, because they've seen the process, they're living the dream, and they want to continue on that dream onto their clients as well. So it feels really good just to have that same mental trajectory all in one spot. Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
So right now, what is the main bottleneck for you, Craig? I mean, now that you've had, several agents join the team, you're looking to grow it even more. What's a big bottleneck right now for the FI team?
The biggest one right now is probably, again, I think we've got the infrastructure to grow. We really are just working on getting this PPC machine up and running, right? And that's like kind of my one thing this year. Once that gets going, like we'll be able to feed that machine even more, and we can do more and more deals. And then it's such a like a baseline for just this infinite growth. It's just a matter of kind of sticking to the process. I need to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do, also holding all of the agents accountable to do what they need to do. And once this starts materializing, it'll become a really fun thing for everybody.
Yeah.
So that's I guess the bottleneck. Yeah.
For sure. And what's funny is that I'm actually encountering this right now with one of my clients where eventually after doing a bunch of showings and trying to find the right location, we're looking in Aurora within this certain high school that her daughter is in, like within the school district, so that they can like have her keep staying at that high school and all that good stuff. And we were trying to find a house hack for her, or at least generate some income on the property. But we encountered one that fulfilled all the criteria, like the square footage, the beds, baths, the layout, and things like that. But it was mainly now she's turning more into a residential buyer rather than looking for like an income. And here I am trying to like change my mindset here. It's like, okay, we're not trying to build out the basement. We're not trying to rent out rooms here. We're actually trying to find something that's fit for a family here. So now I'm having that conversation and trying to change my mindset to like, okay, if she's going to be the first of many residential buyers that I have to get accustomed to, I got to start having these conversations that are not the normal questions that I would ask my clients. So I'm growing too, man. As far as like the house hacking aspect, I feel like I got that down. But the residential aspect, it's a whole new territory for me.
Yeah, and and the residential stuff is honestly easier because really you're just doing your opening doors. You're kind of just like pointing some things out, asking them how you like the layout, right? Like, kind of just like put yourself in their shoes. But really, it's just up to them, right? Like you can't even make that decision for them.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like that's another conversation that we got to have outside of the recording studio.
Yeah.
For
I'm
sure.
always happy to have them.
Awesome. Well, outside of that, Craig, I feel like that's it for me. There's a lot more that we could talk about, but I feel like you've been on enough podcasts that people can even search up for you. So, with that being said, I like to turn the tables. I like to give the interviewee the mic and become the interviewer for up to 3 questions. No pressure. Even if you don't have anything, let me know. But this is your chance to get to know me a little bit better, so that's a two-way street. So, let's have it.
Okay. Who was your favorite elementary school teacher?
Oh, yeah. My favorite elementary school teacher was probably Miss Martine. She was the one who really sparked me to study and learn Spanish. I got a C in that class, but it was mainly because I tried really hard and she pushed us super hard. And I have not learned Spanish at that degree in any other part of my life. So she was a pusher, but I enjoyed my education during that time. So third grade, Miss Martine,
Dang.
way to go.
It's crazy you were learning Spanish in third grade. I guess you were basically on the border of Mexico.
Yeah, I'm sure you were probably learning French.
We were learning English, actually. Okay, second question. What is your favorite color?
My favorite color is this. It's actually my brand color if I were to have one. It's on Instagram. It's my background and my profile picture. It's like this dark bluish green. I like that feel. It's very calming and feels a lot like nature, almost like you're walking in the Pacific Northwest forest, you know?
All right, man. I like that. Yeah. Okay, last question that I will ask you. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
This is a true test to who you are. Is a hot dog a sandwich? No, not in my opinion. If I were to go to a hot dog vendor and say, hey, can I get a sandwich? And he says, what kind of sandwich? And there's so many questions that come up along with that. There's no way that a hot dog would be in the realm of sandwiches. It's two breads, not touching. Well, actually, a sub. Is a sub a sandwich? Is another question too.
Sub is a sandwich, totally.
A sub is a sandwich.
Totally sandwich.
So I guess not vertical.
See,
the opening has to be horizontal. That's my criteria.
Okay, that's your criteria. Okay, I got one last question for you. I'm
Yeah.
gonna ask you one more. This is a question that I've been debating for now like a past week, and I still don't have any answers. I'm not googling it to figure it out. Do bugs smell?
Like
Like a cats and dogs, they smell, right? Like, they can like sense, they can smell like, some meat in the cabinet or whatever, right? But bugs, right? Like you think about it, they have a bunch of eyes, right? So they're really like reactive that way. But like you see them like flying over poop and they're like always on the, like, do you think they smell? Like, do they smell? Do they like the smell of poop?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah.
At first I thought you meant like, do they smell bad? I was like, I don't know.
No.
But I see what you mean.
But,
like the actual action of smelling. Yeah. So I say yes, mainly because, like, let's say in their antenna, they have receptors for these molecules to hit those receptors, and it gets chemically reacted in their brain, right? Let's say for us, like we smell these like ammonia or like carbon compounds from poop, we stay away from it because that reaction in our brain is like, we want nothing to do with that. But for flies or whatever it might be, that chemical transfer in their brain, it activates like, yes, I want this. This is food. So I guess in a way, they do smell. I think so.
Okay.
Does that convince you at all?
I mean, that's probably the best answer I've heard yet. So, okay, and you're a geologist. I feel like, I know you study rocks, but bugs land on rocks. So bugs aren't too far off from rocks.
Oh, for sure.
So, yeah, okay. All right, I'm going to take your answer. I'm going to sit on it for a little bit, and I'll get back to you.
Okay. I will say that there is an internal feud between biologists and geologists, especially at UC Santa Cruz. And for some reason, we have that feud. It's been an ongoing thing, but I think we have a lot more alike than we think.
Yeah, y'all are a bunch of nerds.
That's the common aspect.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Craig. Honestly, it's always a pleasure to even have you on and to get a good conversation out of you. You have a lot to give to the communities, and I feel like we've only touched the tip of the iceberg here. But to get deeper in that iceberg, man, how do people reach out to you?
Yeah, you can reach out to me on Instagram will be the best way. I'm the Fi guy on Instagram. And if you're looking to work with the Fi team, just hit up Ian or hit up thefiteam.com. And but yeah, if you want to hit me directly, the Fi guy, I usually answer most of my messages as long as they're not just hi or like what's up.
Yeah,
Give me some content, and I'll try to respond to you.
for sure. And I'm noticing a picture in the background for Investify if you wanted to plug a little bit with your podcast.
Oh yeah, so Investify is our podcast. It's more of a nationwide thing, and we just basically take people's journeys from the inception of when they first heard about financial independence all the way up to where they are today, and we kind of dig deep into their journeys. And so, yeah, if you haven't already, give it a listen. It'll be super fun.
Nice. The author of the house hacking strategy himself, Craig Kurlop. Thanks so much for being on. I am Ian Jimeno, Invest Endeavor podcast host, a Fi Team production. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys next week. Appreciate it, Craig.